What's happening, people? Welcome to another episode of the Realist Debates with myself, the realist one, Jay.
It's Lengman Joseph from around the way, he's aka Joey Leng, but people just please call me Joey.
Please. And we have a special guest today, who is...
Hi there, my name's Tat.
And yes, we are about to get into it today, people. Something that is widely spoken about, but not really out there. Well, it is kind of out there, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, I say it is. I think
to a certain degree, but it's the whole health, fitness versus unhealth, fatness conversation. So yeah, this might be a bit triggering for some of you, but hey, it's just our opinion. So yeah, just deal with it, innit? Just deal with it. Realist debates. Let's get into it. What are you saying, Joey?
Boy, do you know what? Having an opinion on this, I found it quite hard because when we're talking about like unhealthiness and fatness, like how are we quantifying it? Like, yeah, what are the parameters that we're placing on this person is fat, this person is unhealthy? Like that's where I'm struggling a little bit to understand. So like from like your point of view, for example, like what does it look like?
Well, for me, I mean, obviously, as everyone must know, I'm a fitness professional, so boxing coach, PT extraordinaire, all the rest of it. So for me, when you say what does it look like be a bit more specific. Like, what do you mean? What does
like
fitness
physically
look like? What does health look like?
So let's separate them. Let's just say what fat looks like from an aesthetic point of view.
Let's dive right
yeah, let's just dive in. Let's dive in it.
Cool, innit? Say no more.
And did you know the reason why I say that? Yeah, is because I think it's very subjective. So, for example, pre-COVID, that was bigger, innit?
Yeah.
Because I used to go gym and that. So, but to some people, I'm just big. I go gym. To others, I might be fat to them. Like I remember, one of like my housemate at the time, he was like, "Yo, Jay, you're getting fat, you know." But to me, I'm like, nah,
fat?
no, I ain't. But the thing is, it's subjective, innit? So that's why it's always hard to think like what is fat. So
well, I mean, I don't know, innit? Like, to me, fat is overweight. Now, I know you're gonna say what is overweight.
Yeah.
I guess when someone is not spilling out of their clothes, but visibly bigger, innit? Like, I don't know, when you can see cellulite.
No, that's bullshit. You could be skinny and have cellulite.
Here we go. This is gonna get techy.
That's what I was thinking. Is what cellulite?
Nah.
You can be skinny and have cellulite. You could be fat and not have cellulite.
I like seeing cellulite in certain situations.
But,
yeah, scrap that one. There is no real definition then from me. It then comes down to a visual thing.
Okay.
And what I see as a normal sized person and a overweight person. So yeah.
When it comes to like overweight though, like for me it's a spectrum.
Okay.
Like it goes from like being like lean or whatever and like athletic and then being normal and then being like a bit chubs. Like, and that kind of goes to fat to like obese to then like super morbidly obese, which is like kind of American fat. Do you know what I mean?
Super size.
Yeah, like you have to use like a mobility scooter fat. Do you know what I mean? And so like it's quite a spectrum. And so I think that's also the thing where like I feel, because it is really subjective, like where people's line is for each of those things is different. Like, so it depends. And I think also like, because some of it is genetic, some of it's to do with like how big someone is, like their frame and that kind of stuff as well. Like people carry weight differently. And again, like obviously like men and women carry it quite differently as well. And so it's sort of quite hard to like say like categorically.
Definitively.
Yeah,
I agree. And like I was saying, for me, then it comes down to a visual thing where I can see, in my opinion, what someone looks like skinny, normal, and overweight. Those are the kind of three categories that I see in day-to-day life. So yeah, that's just how I see it. Like for me, I wouldn't also tell someone that they are specifically fat. I wouldn't go and tell someone like, yeah, I feel like you're fat. It's not my place to say that. And in, like you were saying, it being very subjective, in their eyes, they might not see themselves as that. So who am I to kind of define them?
Especially like one thing is if someone has been like really obese and then they lose quite a lot of weight and then they are just like fat or chubby, they are most likely not going to see themselves as that. Like that's the thing that I've seen.
They've gone through a transition.
Yeah, like quite a lot of people I know who like that. And they're like, if you just met them, you would probably say, oh yeah, they're quite overweight or whatever. But they've lost like, 100 kilos or something. So like it's a comparison thing as well.
And it's a journey as well.
And like,
same time.
even if they're like happy at that point, like they don't want to lose any more. And like, yeah, you would maybe think that they are. But like one of the things is like, when you lose weight is you do feel better. So like they're going to feel a lot better that much later. They would, I think, still feel better if they lost more. But like that might be so much better than they felt that they're cool with that stuff and they want to still just eat loads, which is fine. It's like, that's their decision kind of thing.
So you, Jaden, same question?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it is pretty much same like that. I think it is a spectrum because you can have like lean, athletic. Then there are people that are what I suppose society would say is the average body to then the other side of the spectrum where you have people that are either larger or chubs, then to this fat, to you're on mobility scooters and the stairs is a myth. Like it's all a spectrum. But I suppose with that as well, seeing how it is a spectrum these days, do we think that there's a hyper acceptance of fat people or obesity?
Is that to me? Or...
I'm just throwing questions out here, there, everywhere.
Do you know what? I'll put my neck on the line.
Yeah, so suppose let's do it to you as a fitness professional.
As a fitness professional, I would say yeah. To be honest, the way I see it, and not even just from a professional perspective, like everyone on this green earth should be living in a way that benefits them at the end of the day, which is self-care. So obviously people have bad habits, which can be eaten. For example, I smoke weed. That's my habit. That's my vice.
Same way.
So I'm not saying that there's things that you are doing in life that aren't going to stop you from per se living longer, but your aim should be to try and stretch your life expectancy out for as long as possible. So with that in mind, some people are actively not doing that. So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit technical. I mean, from a fitness professional point of view as well, like I every day coach people and teach people how to live a healthier lifestyle. So anything other than that for me isn't per se living in the right way. So i.e. trying to keep active. Like that's one thing that everyone should be trying to do. And it doesn't even mean going to the gym and working out and doing all of that stuff. There's more to being healthy and being active than going to the gym. Do you get what I mean? So
even something like gardening is better than doing that.
Going for regular walks to the park, whatever it is, like just being active. Whereas some people are having bad choices and not doing anything to kind of reverse or rectify those decisions. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question or
yeah, no, I think there is probably a hyper acceptance of obesity, but I think for me, I don't really have a problem with it. I think where there are pockets of problems is things like as one thing you touched upon was where you're totally inactive. But I think and the food aspect as well, like what your relationship is like with food. I think those are like two big things.
Yeah.
But then with me, I kind of look at like the whys as well. So, okay, someone is inactive. It's not, but how, for example, has kind of exercise been presented to them from like a young age? So like, I think we're just lucky that from a young age, for example, we took to football. So we was always able to just run around and play football no matter where we go, park, take your top off, put it on the goal. For some people, football's bun. I don't know why they think that, but fair enough. You know, maybe other sports are what does it for them. So what are like the access to those sports? Like, for example, in the Olympics, we've just had skateboarding, like as a sport. However, years ago, from what I remember, skateboarding weren't really that cool. So like, say for example, there might be a Chubbs kid that just likes skateboarding, but he's looked at as, what are you doing, man?
See, skateboard was cool when I was younger, but I'm a bit older.
It weren't really cool still. It
was when I was growing up.
Kind of nerdy thing still.
Yeah, it was a bit nerdy. It was a bit nerdy, but it was, I don't know.
Shitty clothes, Vans, Converse. Just look like, and them man used to have like bare injuries as well. And I just used to think, rah, you're putting yourself through a lot, boy. Like bare cuts and bruises and that.
Yeah.
So in school, I weren't trying to look like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, for some people, gym's boring. Like, sometimes I go gym out of habit and repetition more than the love of it. Sometimes I've got to push through. Some people just can't do it. So I suppose it's kind of, how do you like reshape like what their relationship is with physical activity? And I suppose not painting it as exercise, because that, I suppose, and that's something that we kind of spoke about. It can be like a scary word.
Let's play devil's advocate here. Why not put it down to exercise? If you know,
because it's a block for people.
Yeah. So I'll give you
need to be healthy.
Because the thing is, okay, so like one of the reasons, I mean, he like got me on here for a few reasons, and one of them is like one of the things that I do is like I'm, I guess, also an exercise professional. I love that term. But I use it like, I'm a PT, but I don't train people. I use it more to do with like trying to get on like a public health kind of point of view, basically, and like trying to get people to be more active. And like that is also what we call it, like activity therapy rather than exercise, because it's just a word that a lot of people, especially fat people, will hear and just be like, no, you know? And so like they don't want to go to a gym as well, because it's not particularly fun always being a fat person in a gym, like a lot of people, which is just not okay. Because like, I mean, I kind of feel like if you want to judge a fat person who's like eating a burger, fine. I can understand why you would do that. But if you want to judge a fat person who's in a gym trying to lose weight, then you're a fucking cunt, basically. I can say that. Right?
Yeah, say what you want.
And so like...
don't accuse anything of someone or something we're not sure they done.
Okay, and that's fine. That is fine. You know what I mean? Like that is just so not okay, but it's still like a bit scary to be in a gym and be that person.
The terminology that you used?
Activity therapy, or...
Is that the other word for exercise?
Yeah, like that's kind of like almost like a sort of rebranding type of thing.
Activity therapy.
To like the...
See, now me just being another fitness, like that sounds like something that you would delegate to someone with a mental problem, which it could be behind the scenes, an eating disorder or whatnot. But still, I don't get why you can't just be black and white and say to someone, I hear what you're saying about the mental block, but what is it? Activity?
Well, just activity therapy is just sort of like what I'm calling it. Whereas like it can just be, basically for that, what it means is just be more active than you are at the moment. Because it could just be, you know, especially for like older people who are like got habits, and it literally could just be like, again, if you're really obese, like any activity is more than you're probably doing. And so even if it is just like every time you stand up to go to the, you know, like every time you stand up to go and get more ice cream, you stand up and sit down 5 times. Do you know what I mean? So like that's still doing more.
The point I was going to get to is, what if you labeled exercise, which you have activity therapy, but the explanation that you give to people, why can that not be given as exercise?
I think it can be, but it has to be depending on who you're talking to, because a lot of it is, like you have to get past a mental block, especially if you're talking to people who are overweight. Because also, I mean, I personally think that like you can be a bit chubby because of like some genetics, and you know, like you like the taste of food and you eat a lot and you drink a lot or whatever. But if you get to the point of being like properly obese, you have an eating disorder. You have a disordered relationship with food. You are using food not just to like fuel yourself, basically, because you can't be that fat. Like if you're really, really obese, you cannot get to that size unless you are abusing food, essentially, right? And like that, you know, that has to be dealt with for someone really, I think, to sustainably lose weight and keep it off. Because, yeah, like there's a reason, you know, it's an addiction. Food disorders are an addiction, whether it's anorexia, bulimia, like, or overeating. And if you don't like deal with what is like underneath that addiction, then it's just going to come up in a different way or just come back, and you're going to be like no happier, basically. Because I think one of the things as well is like generally like people who are fat, like if they lose weight, they will feel a bit, you know, better mentally because they'll feel better physically, right? And like part of the reasons for that is, again, is like kind of getting to the root of like, why are you that size? Because that, especially when you get really big, like there are no fat animals in nature, right? Like the only fat animals you see are
but again, that's genetically
so that's like, yeah, like they're all that size,
or
you know what I mean?
Elephant, for example,
or like they're not fat, they're just big, mate. But like
yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know how to come back to that point.
because it's true. Like you get them in like the ones that get fatter is they then like hibernate and then they're skinny again. Do you know what I mean? And like there's reasons for it. The only fat animals you see are domesticated, and that's for a reason. Like, you know,
overfed by
social habits.
Yeah, because it's like they don't eat emotionally, and they don't, you know what I mean? They're using it for fuel and stuff, and then they're moving. Like animals move more. Like we used to move more. Like, and you know we're not meant to be fat, basically. Like otherwise, like you would be even if you like did loads of stuff. So it is to do with that, where like you are going to feel better if you lose weight, like, and not just
I'm
mentally.
agreeing with you still. I mean, it's good to obviously play devil's advocate, but I mean, going back to originally what Joey was asking me in regards to, is it become socially acceptable? Again, I'd say there is too much of a pass for fat or obese people, or there's too much of a mask being given to bad behaviors or whatnot. So for me, I think that as well as everyone should be accepted, I agree with that. And I wouldn't be in the job that I'm in without fat people. Do you understand? So let's get it right. Like I wouldn't have had a successful career as a PT without these said people that we're talking about. However, at the same time, I wouldn't have been successful if I didn't coach these people into a better lifestyle. There would be no longevity in it for me. Do you understand? So that takes me convincing a certain type of person that a different lifestyle or to live a different lifestyle is better. And most importantly, that person had to realize first and had to come to me. I didn't go and find these people to build this career off of. They came to me. And that is what I want to reiterate is the most important thing, is that accountability, that acceptance that you have got bad habits and that you do need to change them. And then they come and butt me and then I'm going to change your life, obviously. But so that's what I'll say on that matter in terms of the acceptance, social acceptance.
I think like with that as well, though, it's who you associate with, right? So like you generally, people hang out with people who kind of like, you know, are cool with your lifestyle, your habits, how you live, like whatever. And you do see it a lot. Like when you know, if you go out and you see groups of, you know, people, they often do, you know, you might see a group and they're all a bit chubs, you know what I mean? Or like they're all really fit. Or, you know, you see it, especially like in families, it's a thing you see a lot, like, you know, where they're all a bit overweight because they're all eating, you know, eating too much and they're all doing that kind of stuff. Like, you know, occasionally you'll see, you know, when there's only one person like who's really, really big. And then that to me is definitely there's something underneath that has meant they've got that big, you know what I mean? But like you do generally like hang out with people who, you know, like basically sort of
share your habits,
condone your lifestyle. Yeah, when whether
Mm.
it's even if it's just like, you know, you drink a lot, most of your friends will, because it's also like it's shit to be the one fat person in a group of friends. Like I've been there. I used to be obese, and like it sucks, you know, when you're that one person, you know, and like so you do generally see that, and so like who you associate with makes a big difference, because even if it like, you know, like you're not likely to sort of call someone out on it if you're also the same. Do you know what I mean? And like, so that's part of it. Like the thing about losing weight is like you say, the person who does it has to decide for themselves that they want to do it. But I think it's much harder to do that if most of your like social group in your family are a similar, like, you know, vibe.
Mindset.
Yeah, same mindset, same size. Don't think, and then because of that, like it's seen as normal and like okay, and like there's nothing bad about it. And like, you know, even things like some of the health issues that come like along with being overweight, like, you know, type 2 diabetes is a really big one. And like that is, you know, like it runs in families. And if everyone in the family has it and they all take the pills and whatever, and they just don't see it as such a big deal because everyone's got it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it's a real problem, and it's a completely reversible and like condition that can, you know, you can stop it happening, you can reverse it happening. And like, so you said as well, it's like at the beginning about how you think it's sort of a personal thing about like how you should want to live your best life and like be as healthy as you can. And it's like an individual thing, but I think it's also like, you know, a societal thing, especially in like a country like us with like the health service, is the amount of like money that the NHS like has to spend on obesity and obesity related conditions is enormous. So there's also like that aspect of it of just like, it's not just about you. It's like your choices mean that you're going to have certain like, well, predisposed to a lot of fuckery health wise that costs us all. You know what I mean?
I think I heard it was like a third of their budget or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
a huge amount. So like diabetes is about it's about 10% of their budget, right? That's diabetes itself, not to do with the shit that can come along with it. And of that, like it's nearly all type 2 diabetes. Like only 10% of people who have diabetes have type 1.
Wow.
So it's quite
whoa.
Yeah, it's quite different, right?
Amazing.
And so like type 1, I've got that, you know, you get it usually as a kid or a teenager.
Yeah.
They don't really know what causes it. It's autoimmune. There's nothing you can do about it. It's got nothing to do with your weight, anything like that. And you have it forever. Type 2, essentially you get it because you have overloaded your system with carbs. You put on weight and you can't, you're you know, the bit of you that like deals and metabolizes carbohydrate, insulin, cannot keep up with the demand, which means if you get there in time and you lose a lot of weight, you cut down like what you're eating, like carbs and all that kind of stuff, you can stop it from happening and you can reverse it completely. You don't need medication, right?
Yep.
But that's obviously a lot harder than taking a few pills a day. But then, you know, it costs so much as well to the NHS because if you've got diabetes, type 1 or type 2, you get free prescriptions. Like you don't pay anything for any of your prescriptions, right? Even if they're not related to the diabetes. So, you know, what also comes along with diabetes, you get comorbidities like, you know, eye problems or heart, feet, all this kind of like secondary stuff. And anything you get for that is also going to be free. So it costs a lot of money to the NHS. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of money. It's 10% of the budget.
I just want to look up how many people have type 2 diabetes in the UK.
It's mad as well.
It's about
just on
4
the back of
million.
4 million. Right. So that's 4 million.
That's
free treatment.
That's 4 million who have been diagnosed with it, right? Whereas they think it's a lot more than that who are
undiagnosed. Yeah,
either undiagnosed or in the States they call it like pre-diabetic, which basically means like you're probably going to get it unless you sort your shit out.
Yeah, it happened to a family member.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, on the back of you talking about the NHS, do you think they do enough? Because they're spending, like you said, shitloads of money. Do you think they do enough to promote health and fitness though?
No, but they're starting. I can't even remember the term. Activity therapy.
That's the one.
They are starting to. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm working with a company who had produced an app, which is called XC, which is being piloted in bits of the NHS, which is going to be part of the thing to like try and prescribe this to people to try and get them to do more like exercise and activity. And so it is like you said, like going for a walk or just doing a bit more, because a lot of it is just like you just start by just doing a bit more, because like, you know, again, like not everyone is going to go to a gym for a variety of reasons. And they even hear the word exercise and they're just like, oh, that's not for me.
Running off.
Yeah. And I personally, like, I think, like, again, having been, like really big, that, and like now how I am now, it's like there is going to be a kind of like proper, I got like proper exercise where your heart rate's really going up and like that kind of stuff, that like anyone will find at least one kind that they really like. And so it's just like trying to find those like things, and like making it more accessible for people, because a lot of that stuff costs money, which people don't have, and like, so I don't think they do enough. They're starting to try and do a bit more, but there is still a lot of issues in the NHS to do with things like problems that are, almost definitely, if not caused by being severely overweight, but exacerbated by that, where doctors don't like to necessarily say that is the reason. Like things like knee problems and foot problems and that stuff.
Why do you think they feel as though they can't?
I think because it is just that thing of like, it's a very sensitive subject to most people who are overweight, that they won't accept it. Like they just won't think it's, that is the reason. Even though it's just, again, like, it's like, we're not meant to be really big. So like, it's basic physics that like most people who are, especially severely overweight, they have pain, like their knees hurt. Like
I deal with a lot of injury rehab, posture correction, like a lot of people
like hunched over.
Yeah. Like I specialize in that as well. And like a lot of it comes from people being overweight.
Yeah.
Even down to maybe them in their job or whatnot. If they're overweight in that, some people are turning ankles, or do you get what I mean? I'm not saying you're not fit enough to do your job, but to do your job well, you need to be of a certain stature, in my opinion. You can't be trying to do certain things and your body is not capable of doing such things. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, a lot of people can prevent the injuries they get from just simply looking after themselves a bit better.
And this is where, because I think, as I said earlier, I think if someone's fat, if you want to be morbidly obese and you want to live that lifestyle, I think, okay, if that's what you want to do, like, do it. However, I don't think, this is where I suppose,
it's gonna heat up now.
No, if for example, like, you're going to the doctors, for me, like, if I'm obese and you're my doctor, you can't be doing blood check, this, that, the other, and not telling me that I should be doing something to change my lifestyle. I think as a doctor, it's like, it's your job to basically help people live as long a life as they should, and as comfortable life as they should. So I don't think that, for example, doctors should feel as though they can't say that, for example, because
they're gonna hurt someone's feelings.
Because they might get a backlash. Because for me, I think if you are, wherever you are on the spectrum, from chubs to morbidly obese on the scooter, if that's the lifestyle you want to live, fair enough, but you should be comfortable with that as well. Because if you're not, then there is a problem there. That means that for whatever reason, you don't feel as though you should be that weight, and what you're doing is projecting outwards. And I think that's the bit where I'm like, I don't really agree with it. If you want to be larger or obese or whatever it is, fair enough.
Do your thing, brother.
Do your thing. However, because remember, the last session we was doing, and then we was just chopping it up here, and we had that the tube advert.
Is your body beach body ready?
Yeah, and then there was massive backlash over that. Now for me, I got it, but I didn't get it at the same time, because if you see that and you're a larger person, if you're okay with that, you should literally see that and be like, I laugh off, you know? I don't think there should be this massive campaign, because from what I remember, it literally just said, "Are you beach ready?" It didn't. Like it didn't say.
I think
this is what the beach body is.
Is your body beach ready or something like that?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, what are they? They sell, like, is it protein shakes or something?
Yeah.
Realistically, you're not gonna have a fat person on there, are you? Like, saying, "Are you beach ready? Come get our product." Because it's a bit defeatist in that way. So they're going to target people that want to look like that on holiday. You're not their target audience.
Do you know what? And it is off the back of what you're saying. I agree, bro. And it's like, if you want to be big,
Mm-hmm.
cool. But like you said, that's when people start projecting outwards as well. It's like you can't choose a lifestyle to be big and then have a go at people that want to be healthy, for example.
Yeah.
Do you understand? It don't make sense. Like, I'm not coming up to you saying you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, you've chosen your life, cool. But then when it comes to people being healthy and choosing a healthier lifestyle, that's when it's like everything needs to be inclusive and, you know, are we upsetting those people? It's like, nah, cool. Like, I'm choosing to do this for me. Like, I wanna prolong my lifestyle, my life expectancy as long as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go to the gym. I kick a little football when I can. Like, I'm doing things that I feel will prolong my life.
Yeah.
Then someone might turn around to me again and say, but you smoke. Okay, cool. But at the same time, I'm doing things that I feel will reverse that process.
And you're not in denial about the fact that, like, it's, you know, like, it would be better if you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, health-wise.
And that's the thing. I
it's
take
like
accountability for that.
I feel like that's the thing that's different.
Smoking weed is not going to prolong my lifestyle. I know that. I mean, my life expectancy. I know that.
Yeah.
However, I'm doing things that I feel will reverse that at least slightly. I'm not just sitting idle, blowing spliffs all day, just like, letting my lungs get mashed up. Like
I'm not either, by the way. Let me just put it on the record.
Huh?
I'm saying I don't either. Let me just put it on the record. I do shit during the day.
And that's the thing. If you're making a choice or a conscious decision to sit down and overeat to the state where your body is doing whatever, like.
But even if it's not like a conscious decision to sit down and do that, like, because again, I feel like, especially if you're really big, it is an addiction and you have to, like, you don't have control over that necessarily. However, like, I mean, like you said about the beach body thing, I completely agree. Because I hate, like, journey. I hate that as a term, but, like, it's what people use, my weight loss journey. And I fucking hate it. I don't know why. But, like, most of my life, other than, like, a brief spell of that with anorexia when I broke my back, that's another story. But, like, I've been I've been, like, overweight or, like, a bit chubs, right? And, like, I had eating disorders when I was younger. Like, I was bulimic from, like, the age of 10 to, like, 22, and I sorted it out. And then obviously, like, my food, like, I was overeating as well. And, like, I was sort of a bit, what I would consider, like, chubs, a bit fat, whatever, for quite a long time. So, like, UK sort of dress sizes, I was about, like, a 14, and I'm 5 foot, like, 3.5, 4. I don't know. No one really knows how tall they are, do they? I'm convinced of that fact. And I'm, like, super petite. Like, my frame is tiny. And so I was definitely, like, chubby, right? I was quite happy being like that. And I was quite happy being like, so I got about a size 16. I was quite happy. Like, and I would have seen that advert and been like, fuck yeah. Like, are you, is your body bikini ready? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to put a bikini on my body. Like, it's ready, kind of thing. Because I was fine with being fat. I didn't give a shit. Like, it was only when I sort of got a lot bigger, like to about a size 20, 22 or something, that I was not okay with being fat. And, like, it got to a point when had been like that for a while where I was just done being fat. And now I'm not fat anymore, and I weighed, I've lost 30 kilos basically. And, like, but I was always aware when I was fat that it was because I wasn't eating right. Like, I was eating too much, you know what I mean? Like, and when I got bigger, like, I have back problems and stuff from when I broke it and some other shit. And, like, that made it harder for me to move and harder for me to do stuff. And it just kind of spiraled. But I knew, like, I was fat because I eat too much. I don't move enough, which is why when I just was, like, done being fat, like, it wasn't easy to lose weight, but it was, like, sort of relatively, like, simple because I knew what I was doing. And I think one of the problems one of the things that I have a real issue about is the denial that people have and just the lack of, like, knowledge. So, like, people who are really fat and they're like, oh, but I've got a slow metabolism, or, it's the genetics, or it's this or that, or I'm really trying and I can't lose weight. I've done all the diets. And I am just like, no, you haven't. Like, you don't, most people don't know what they are eating. Like, you know, this is why it can be good. Just write everything, you know this, like write everything you eat like down just for like even just for a week. Because like, again, if someone is underweight, like you do the same thing with them, because like if you're underweight and you're trying to put on weight, chances are like you don't realize that you're not, like how little you're eating. And the same is like you don't realize how much you're eating, because it is like, you know, that biscuit does make a difference kind of thing, you know.
Especially, again, it's with the consistency as well.
Yeah.
So I do get most of my clients to write me a food diary prior to even starting a session with them, just so I can see what their habits are.
Yeah.
So it can be a 2-week food diary or a month food diary, and they've written it out. And when I'm studying it, I can see what they're doing consistently. Like habitually, I'm having 2 glasses of wine and chicken wings every day or every other day, just hypothetically speaking. But to them, it's just, I'm just having it's it what here. They do. But they don't realize that if you're doing that 2-3 times a week consistently,
but you know,
then it becomes a
Both
problem.
of you guys have touched on a really, really good point, because whilst kind of talking about like the beach body advert thing, like for me, if you are overweight, if you're happy with it, that shouldn't get to you type of thing. But I think one thing that you mentioned, what you was kind of talking about as well, is like the education piece. And that's why within a space that we are. Because, for example, I don't think the advert should have been taken down, but I understand the projection, because like obesity is demonized. But for me, I feel as though in society, we create people and then we leave them to it and then we demonize them later.
Yeah.
So as an example, what you were saying, like one of your clients' food diaries might be red wine and chicken wings. That's probably what has been normalized in the house growing up.
Yeah.
So, because remember, a lot of the habits that we get is from what we see other people doing and what people show us.
The learn and taught behavior.
Like, what is acceptable? So I know, for example, in my household, it was weird if 3 different meats and a fish weren't cooked on the weekend. Why do I need 3 different meats and a fish for din-dins? I don't need that. And that's not even talking about the 2 other carbs. Don't get me wrong, there's vegetables in that as well. But it was a buffet for a family. We didn't need that. But that was just something that was instilled in me. That's what dinner should look like. If someone's cooking, it should look like this. You should wake up at the crack of dawn and not be done till mid-afternoon, sweating over stove, and it's like it should look like Christmas. That's kind of what
that sounds like Christmas.
Yeah, that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
And with that, what I was taught was, it's not just one plate; it's multiple plates. How many times do we joke about going to a barbecue and holding multiple? You don't need multiple plates. Like social norms has told you go to a barbecue and have bare plates.
Wait, in my body, I can have how many plates I want.
You know, and I do it as well.
Like, man. Or just have one, but you pile it really high.
But then the problem with that is, like, you're taught that's how you should eat. Like, that's what your relationship should be like with food. But then when you have complications or anything, I think that's when people are quick to start getting onto you. So like, I pretty much explained what dinner looked like in my family, right? So now, like, my uncle, I think he's type 2 now, but he was at a period where he was pre-diabetic. And the doctors were like, yeah, you can reverse it, but you're gonna have to work. And I even remember, like, even other members in the family were kind of getting onto him about his weight and how he eats, etc. But I'm kind of sitting there thinking, but we have created his habits with food. And now that there's a medical problem, now we're almost not throwing him under the bus, but we're kind of saying it's a you problem, sort it out. But not me, I was a kid, but you know,
I didn't cook that food.
I didn't cook that food. I didn't tell you eat okay. But like, as a family, we've pretty much said, like, this is acceptable. This is what, and especially this is what we think a man should be doing as an example, and how they should eat. And
man gets the biggest plate and all that.
Biggest plate, biggest chopper something. But now he's overweight and he's on his way. He's diabetic now, but he's on his way to become diabetic. Now it's a problem. And this is why I understand why a load of overweight people will project out and feel like attacked in a way, because I get it and I can see it because it's something that we do in a cyclical fashion. And that's where, for me, it's the education that needs to come in.
Yeah.
Like, you need to teach people about food, because how many people do you hear say, nah, I'm eating healthy. Like, look, this thing this has no sugar, but it probably has hella fat. You can't deplete something without something else,
you
for
know
example.
Me, devil's advocate and all that. Why are people not educating themselves about food? That's a real question. Like,
but I think
I hear the theory. Yeah, we should be educating people, etc. But if you've gotten to a certain stage in your life where food has not worked well for you per se, you obviously need to educate yourself better.
But I'm talking from instilling from young. I'm not talking about, obviously there are people that are overweight now that they need support anyway. So you do need to give those people a helping hand.
So you're talking about the youths them outside Sam's then at lunchtime or after school.
That's a good point.
Chicken
wings. When I look back at what I used to eat as a kid, trash. Lunch was like Sam's, or what we used to call it, pigeon shop. We didn't even know what we were eating, but we were eating it all the time.
Like on that note, one of the things, well, like with it's like the family vibe as well. Is so in some like areas, 25% of like new diabetes type 2, like young people being diagnosed with diabetes, it's type 2, 25%.
Wow.
Which is a crazy high number. Like it should be more like a couple of percent of people who are like teenagers with type 2 diabetes. Because like, you know, I went to a couple of the hospitals around that I'm trying to do some pilot schemes with type 1 diabetes and adolescents and exercise, right? And I was like talking to the people, you know, saying I want to do this pilot scheme, and they were really keen. And then they were like, but can you also do one for type 2? And I was just like, wait, what? And then they were like, yeah, 25% of their new cases are type 2. And this blew my fucking mind, dude.
But it doesn't.
It does and it doesn't.
The school diet is trash.
But it is still just like, that is so fucked up.
But when you hear the numbers, it's stark.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
and you know what, as well, in school, I remember you talking about chicken shop and all of that. I remember the main reason I used to dodge and go to the chicken shop was because the school, what they were trying to feed me was...
The Jamie Oliver thing.
Mate, no, it was... I'm a bit before that time still, you know? I'm before Jamie.
Like,
Shout out Jamie and that.
No, I'm still on to him. He ruined my school dinners, man.
They're mad thing school dinners, innit?
The gruel.
Congealed school
sloppy
dinners.
joes and that.
The best bit about
carbs on carbs as well.
The dessert. Them cakes with the sprinkles and all
custard,
of that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my main thing at school was chips and beans, man. That was the only safe thing.
Imagine now reminiscing about school, my favorite thing was the dessert, bro. Not the main meal. The favorite thing was dessert. And because it was dessert, I used to clap the cake. I didn't have a main meal. So the main meal, I used to go out and get Sam's, McDonald's, and it used to be a trend in school. That's where the youths then would meet, like outside the chicken shop or outside McDonald's.
Do you know the only kids that were really relatively eating healthy?
Chinese kids.
Right. No.
Yeah, it's true. They came with their little lunch boxes. They went on none of that chicken shop shit.
But
yes.
I was going to say the kids that had to get the free school lunches.
Oh, okay.
Because you were getting an apple, a juice, and a little sandwich. It wasn't super healthy, but relatively to what man was all Sam's and this, that, the other, it was the best you could get. But more time, they were because I think I might have got free school meals for a bit. But I was just grinding throughout the day to then I still had that and then just go get Sam's anyway or pigeon shop or whatever. So yeah, just to avoid the school dinners, because they were people regularly used to get food poisoning.
Oh yeah,
like regularly.
And the kids that couldn't afford to dodge to Sam's were eating that school dinner.
Yeah.
So either way, we were fucked. It was like there was no instilling from young, like you're saying, about being taught, because all we were taught is shit food, or if you don't want that type of shit food, run out of school and get even worse shit food.
And then also like when you go home, it's
Fried
also the same thing. Like, what are you eating as well? And it's like, so that was the thing, like with the like these younger kids with type 2, like they're all obviously overweight.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really high proportion of like kids. Like I think it's something like 10% or something or 20%, I think it is, of like 10 and 11-year-olds are overweight now. Like, because you do way less sport in school, like in general, like like way less compared to when I was a kid.
What's their indicator? Is it BMI?
Yeah, because with kids, it's BMI and stuff is more accurate because obviously they don't have all the muscle, because that's one of the things with BMI that can be like with BMI, it's because it's still a metric that is used a lot with waist circumference, but it's also like, it's more like awareness that it's not always particularly relevant, because it depends. Like, I mean, I've had it where like
BMI used to cook me, bruv.
Yeah, because like I had it before when I was like,
especially if you're a muscle dense person.
Oh, as soon as I hit adulthood,
you're
obese.
Like I've had that.
What?
Like,
No,
yeah.
It's mad.
Nah, you're obese. Sure, I think I was like in between 25 and 30 for the longest or something like that.
Yeah, because that's
and
overweight.
Like, no, I was overweight.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I'm not still.
Because I had that once when I went to get like a sort of like a doctor's appointment, and they did my weight and my height and stuff. And this was when like I'd lost quite a bit of weight already, but I was about 10 kilos more than I am now, so about 75 kilos. And like the woman and it was winter, so I was like in fucking baggy sweatpants and shit. And she was just like not really paying attention. Oh, okay, so your BMI is like 28 or something, so you should probably think about losing weight, whatever. And I was like, just 1 minute. And like just took off my like top and was just like, like, and like flex my quad, because I was quite hench then as well. And she was like, okay, yeah, never mind. Because it is that thing of like, it
imagine
doesn't.
if you're a rugby player.
Yeah, like I've got friends who are like, hench, and they are like obese apparently, because it is like weight itself is not the best.
It's a terrible indicator.
Because I'm like my old flatmates, we were the same size, like almost exactly, like physically and stuff.
Yeah.
She has no muscle. She weighed like almost, I think something like 13, 14 kilo less than me, because she just had none.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a fair bit.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we could share. Yeah, we could share clothes, that kind of thing. And so like when you get to a certain point, it's like kind of bullshit. But actually, when you get over a certain point and to look at someone as well and to do with waist circumference, it's like a relatively good idea. Like it's good if you are sedentary and you do the waist circumference as well. But if you're an active, like fit person, and they now actually say that on the NHS website, if you go on to do it.
I let them off then.
Yeah, because I was
always onto them for it.
It is, yeah, it's only been quite recently, because it is obviously like not great, but it's like you, as a, like in healthcare, you have to have some kind of metric, because you can't just be like, that person's a fatty, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be something you use.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, the one of the things that I have with it as well is like, when people are like, oh, you're just I'm big, it doesn't mean I'm unhealthy and stuff. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that. However, like, I also feel like you can be, like a bit like bigger, fat, whatever, and you can still be a lot like healthier than someone else who is the same size, because you're fat because you eat way too much like healthier shit. Because that's one of the other things is like portion control,
and that's my big problem.
Yeah, and especially when you get used to that, you need more to feel full and stuff. And so one of the things with education with things as well is like, people will like think that they are being good, which is also fucked up when you talk about things like that with food, but like because they have like a salad, but the salad has got like cheese and mayonnaise in it, when actually they'd be better off having an actual burger because it's got way more protein, and they'll feel but it's true. Like some salads that you can buy,
their burgers, man.
Yeah, but like
fiend.
Some fucking salads you can get in places like
I agree.
Croutons and all that crap.
Them chicken Caesars.
Yeah, but you don't feel as full. And like, so there's that, or like smoothies, which is like you might as well just have Coke. Yeah, there's a few more like vitamins in there, but it's just sugar. And so people have things like that, thinking that they are, and then they don't understand why they can't lose weight, right?
That's the education
and so,
piece.
But like, still, if you are fat because you're eating way more of that stuff, you are still probably going to be a bit healthier than someone, or at least feel better than someone who is fat because all they do is go to the pigeon shop or whatever. I love that, whatever. But it's true, So, and you can often, I think as well, like, I don't know if you agree with this, like visually, when I see someone who's really fat, you can kind of sometimes tell they are fat because they eat too much, or they are fat because they are clearly unhealthy. Because it's things like, eye bags, or just generally like their skin, like the whole thing. You can sort of tell when someone is fat because they eat a lot, but they still do some activity compared to someone that doesn't, like it does make a difference, like what is making you fat.
I agree.
Real. I want to move it on a bit. Because another like mini discussion I think we had before getting to this was like, should larger people be kind of represented in like what we see in society? So for example, like modeling.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, you knew this was coming, innit? So like, should we have, for example, like plus size modeling? So I know that's something that gets to people where some people think, yeah, we should, because listen, if large people are a part of society, it makes sense that they're also seen in modeling, for example.
I think this is where it's gonna get techie. So plus size models, Tat, what's your thoughts?
I think
I'm dashing it straight to you.
I think it's good. I mean, I think that like it is. I think you should have a wide like representation of all body shapes and like disabilities and that shit. And you're seeing that more, like, you know, and some companies are more like on it than others. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's important, partly as someone like, especially if you're like trying to buy. Like I've noticed it now, Nike do have like a fat range, like a plus size range, whatever you want to call it. When I was starting to lose weight, which is like, like 7-8 years ago, they didn't. I couldn't fit into the biggest size of shit in Nike. I was
literally only like Giacomo was
like, yeah, like I was too fat, right? Like
Giacomo, geez.
Whereas like now you do have like a much like, you know, which is good if you're going to then wear the Nike shit to exercise in, you know, and that's why I wanted to buy it. Like I wasn't going to go into Nike otherwise. I want to get some leggings, but like I literally couldn't fit into the 2XL or whatever the biggest ones were, you know, and like, you know, the fact that they now do have a bigger range is good. Again, like Lululemon, like bougie as fuck, yoga brand, but like they have now do a lot bigger sizes. And so when you go onto the website, like, and you click through, like you see people in different sizes, and like they do a thing which I like, they do it on ASOS as well, where they'll put like also the model's like height, because that's another thing. Like I'm a short ass. So like I want to know if I'm buying clothes, like what they will look on me. Because again, when I was fat, if I could only see like a 6-foot bitch with like, you know, like size 6 wearing something, I'm
that's
like,
not helping you still.
I have no fucking idea what I'm wearing. Right. So like from a company point of view, they have to do that. Otherwise they won't sell as much.
So I know I just asked you one question, but I'm throwing you another one off the back of that. Do you think plus size models glorify fatness or glorify being fat then?
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer after. I'm not dashing you in the deep end.
For me, again, it's like, it's the spectrum thing. Because again, in general, a plus size model will be like, or it used to be that a plus size model would be like a 16, possibly, or an 18, and they would be like 6 foot tall, right? And so their fat would be in like the kind of proportion, ideal place that, like, you know what I mean? Like, as in, they still have a bit of a waist, they have a big ass and tits kind of thing. It wasn't like a bit misshapen-y kind of thing. It was all in the, like, you know, right places, air quotes. But
looking like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. That's literally what was in my head. But like,
this is the realist debate. You got to
say, speak your mind, man. Speak your mind.
You know, and because also for me personally, like when I was about a size 14, 16, like I had a pretty even covering, you know, because genetics, I'm quite lucky with, like, you know, like one of the reasons that I found it quite easy to build muscle is just genetics, you know what I mean? But one of the reasons when I got to like a size 20 that I wasn't happy was like, because it did start to be a bit like in places I didn't want it to be kind of vibe, you know? But like, also when I was a size 16, 14, I did do some modeling shit, like, you know, like with this agency that do like, you know, normal people kind of stuff. And it would be like extra work and this, that, and that. But I was often in shit for things like The Sun, because it was like, we want a normal size woman to be wearing like Victoria Beckham's clothes, one of the ones I did. And they like, you know, so on that level. But again, it's like you still only go to like the smallest of the plus size. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas one of the things that I think is not good is when you have like the whole thing with Cosmopolitan and Tess Holiday, right, on the cover. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh my God. So like a couple of years ago, you just need to like look it up.
The font where she's wearing green in that.
She's wearing like a, I think I sent it to you.
Yeah,
like, can you get it up? Like, because it's like,
So blow it up for us.
Tess Holiday, I think it is. And just Cosmopolitan. And it was like, Cosmopolitan is like international. They have the same cover, like, and she's something like a size 32. She is super morbidly obese. She's fucking enormous, and they put her. No, and again, she's one of those ones that's like she's got a beautiful face, but she's fucking look at that, right? Like,
oh yeah. I saw this.
Right, like,
all right,
okay, and so, and if you go, especially down to like her thighs, like she is not. Like, you know, that to me, like that is just glorifying it in the same way as you would not have someone who was like a size 0 and looked like they just walked out a fucking concentration camp on the cover. It, to me, it is the same level of irresponsibility, right? That's why, like, you know, models have got bigger.
Opposite ends of the spectrum.
Like, you know, again, like when I was younger, like it would be 6 foot tall, you know, like the whole heroin chic thing in the 90s, showing my age. Fuck. But like, you know what I mean? Like it was a thing.
I was playing with toys then, so
fuck you.
Lego and all that.
But it was a thing, you know, and there was a backlash to that. And models have definitely got a bit bigger. They're now more like, you know, 6 foot, but they're more like a size 10 rather than a 6, right? And so, which I think is a good thing because it does promote, like, you know, because again, it's that thing of what is acceptable, and like it's still more acceptable to be fat than thin. So for example, like if someone is super skinny, like even people who don't know them will be like, I'll have a burger, you know what I mean? Or like have some chips, like you can do with it, or like whatever. But you know, if they're with someone and they're eating and they don't think they're eating enough or whatever, or like if someone like, you know, has like suddenly like lost a lot of weight, people are like, are you all right? Do you know what I mean? Whereas if someone suddenly puts on a lot of weight, no one asks them, you know, most people won't be like, are you okay? Because it's probably an emotional thing or you're ill or something. And the same way is like, they see a fat person, like, you know, putting, you know, like stuffing chips in their face or having a fucking full fat Coke, they're not going to be like, have a Diet Coke, love. Do you know what I mean? So there's that like disparity as well, which I think is really fucked when it comes to like the whole body positivity thing. Like you can't be one and then not the other.
I did want to get to later on in terms of how comfortable people are in calling out people's fatness or fitness.
Yeah.
But again, over to you then, Jerry. Do you think that plus size models glorify fatness?
I'm gonna answer the first bit first. In terms of like, should there be plus size modeling?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, there should be. So I think for the similar reasons, kind of you were saying, Tat, about so I understand plus size modeling for things like retail. So I need to understand if that jacket's gonna pop on me. I need to understand like the model that's wearing it, their parameters. Because if, for example, they're 6'4" and whatever, I know it won't fit for me, for example. So even like myself, who I suppose I wouldn't be classed as overweight, I still need that information for myself. And if you're larger, you need that information too. Where I don't understand it fully is like plus size modeling in like is it Tess Halliday?
Yeah. Holiday.
Halliday, yeah. I don't understand it in that setting. And what I mean by that is, to me, she's a model. She's not a plus size model, she's a model. Because if you're doing, I don't know if this is a correct term, but the glamour modeling, like I don't understand why you're so divided in terms of there's the plus size modeling aspect.
You mean like fashion modeling?
Yeah, fashion,
glamour modeling's, you know, like tits out, page 3.
Right. I was going to say I was like, right, she know like this. Hey, your tits out.
Yo, what? Can that get scrubbed?
No edits.
Yeah, the fashion modeling world.
Yeah.
I don't get why it's segregated such. Like, to me, she's just a model, innit? Like, I understand if it's, for example, like you hear people like, I'm a hand model because literally the only thing I do is I model gloves and shit. But like with that, to me, it's just a model.
I think the reason it became a thing is because it used to be that like once you got above in this country a UK size 16 as a girl, I'm not sure what it was as a boy, you basically you were much more limited with where you could shop.
Okay. So
like some places would have like larger ranges or whatever, or you'd have to just go to different shops altogether. But places like Topshop would just stop at a 16, right?
Okay.
And so if you're a plus size model, like
Laura
working,
Ashley or something like that.
Yeah, but like you're also like, you know, you would be going to different castings for jobs and that kind of stuff, right? Because it's just like that's how it used to be. Whereas now, like a lot of places, they still have like a plus size range, but they'll also, like ASOS is a good example. Like they have a plus size range, they have a petite range, they have a tall range. But in those ranges, there's also like other stuff that just goes from a size like 2 or 1, I think they're 4 maybe, to like a 32 or something on ASOS. So you can just get like, so for things like that, which ASOS don't do, they only have one model generally, and then they'll have a different for this curve thing. But other companies like Lululemon, right? Like they will have for every item that they will have people of different like heights, ethnicities, like physical abilities. They had a girl with like, you know, an amputee the other day, I noticed, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, you know, and like they will, and body types as well. So they'll have like tall, skinny people, short, and they'll say what height they are. And I think that is really important because, like even just sort of...
That's what it should look like for me.
Yeah, because also for me, it's like even compared to like other people my size, like I said, like compared to some chick that's my size that doesn't have like any like muscle or anything like that, things can look really different on me. And I'm a short ass. So like, I also want to know, you know, like I normally go petite if it's something long on ASOS. So I need to look at how high, you know, all that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like, so I think that's where it comes from, is like calling it something else. I feel like now they should basically just call them models because it is bullshit.
Yeah, literally.
But I think that's where it like
models.
It came from. Like you could not shop in the same place unless it was like Debenhams or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like say for example, I met someone and they might have lost a foot and they're a model. To me, I wouldn't expect them to be like, yeah, I'm an amputee model.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
nah, you're a model. Like, what are you talking? You're a model, and I just kind of see it the same way. But to answer it, does it glorify? What obesity was the question?
Do plus size models glorify fatness or obesity?
In a way, I suppose it does, but what doesn't? So how can we say, for example, Tess Halliday, I can't get her name right. Tess Halliday is glorifying obesity, etc. This is bad. She shouldn't be on covers. But then, for example, we have other people that are that size that are in positions to influence in some form or way.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So like in movies, we have fat people. Like John Goodman, like movies are sent, he gets plots around his fatness. Like that's also a problem, and that's also glorifying. So it's like it's hard to pick on like this one thing and then kind of leave, for example, things that other people do that does
okay,
get
can though quickly.
No, I think
just on regards. Do you want to go?
I was going on the thing with her, especially on the cover. Like, I found it. I was really just like, this is horrific. Like, I really just thought was like, this is awful, because it's also like it goes with articles of like you should love yourself and accept yourself and all that shit, which I do agree, right? You should. However, if you are as fat as someone like as she is, and like she is super morbidly obese, if she doesn't, you know, if she does not have health problems now, she will do, right? And she is emotionally eating. She's addicted to food. It is impossible to get that size and eat even vaguely normally. Like you are eating like on your feelings. You are addicted to food. And just like, you know, it's not okay. You know, it's not like it's not okay, but like you wouldn't want one of your friends to be chronic alcoholic or like addicted to anything or like a crackhead. And it's the same thing. Like, and so I feel like not challenging that and like having that, like you wouldn't have, I don't know, some celebrity crackhead. I can't think of one, but like, you know, back in, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Or like, you know, like, which I think like Macaulay Culkin when he was a smackhead or someone like that, like on the cover of a magazine being like, just accept yourself, man. Like, it's fine to be like, you know, whatever. No, it's bullshit. And like, that is the thing that I get really frustrated about. It's like, you have an eating disorder. You have a fucked up relationship with food. You've got something underneath that is meaning you eat that much. Like you will be happier as well as healthier, but like mentally happier if you deal with whatever is causing you to be that size.
I agree. And what I was going to bounce back to you actually quickly is that you gave an actor or something that was fat and he gets scripts or whatever based on his fatness or whatever. And then you have her masquerading on the front page of Cosmopolitan. How I was going to kind of defer the two is that me as a young youth, for example, I would just look at him as an actor and be like, oh, yeah, he's just a fat actor.
Yeah.
However, young girls looking at her might think it's cool to be a fat model.
She's a role model.
Yeah, like if I eat and get as big as her, I can be a model too. Whereas if a fat actor's on my TV screen, I'm just going to see him for what he is, which is, he's an actor, all right? He might get typecasted a lot, but I don't want to be like him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an ambition of mine. Whereas her on the front page of a worldwide magazine saying, yo, this is me. Like, this is you through bad habits. Let's not front about it. You've got like that through bad habits. And now you're out here telling or presenting yourself to little girls saying, look, I'm a model. So that is where I have a problem, is that now the lines are blurred, because like I was saying, little girls will look at that and think, like, it's okay to be that big because you can still be a model anyway. And I'm not saying that you can't be that big and not be a model. Like you said, what I would rather it relate to is people with disorders or people that have no choice in the way that they are. Do you understand? That is a more fair reflection of society. Now, a little girl with a disorder that might make her bigger or clinically obese or whatever can look at another person with the same disorder and say, okay, she's been a model through the disorder. Do you understand? Not through the bad habits that have taken her there and fame and this, that. Now she ends up on Cosmo. So again, it's down to the education, but also how the media puts it out there. Do you understand? If you tell someone, okay, this woman's got a disorder, but she's ended up with a successful career as a model, that shows a young girl with a disorder a pathway. You can have a disorder and you can still be successful.
You mean like an eating disorder, or like
a disorder in terms of that made you obese or bigger? It's not through bad habit.
There's very, very, very few things which will make you that big that are like.
But this is the example that I'm giving, is saying that it should be more of a relatable thing where, okay, that person's got a disorder and they can make it, rather than, okay, this person has eaten badly, clearly, and they still can make it.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that it's given to young girls. And that's the definition that I wanted to kind of make clear, is it should be more educational in terms of, if you have a problem, you can make it, rather than just making bad choices and you still can.
Because I think also with one of the things is like, you talk about making bad choices, but I feel like if you have food, like an addiction to food, or like any addiction, it's not really a choice when it's got to that point. Like you don't know how to control it, and you don't feel in control when you're eating and stuff. But the other thing is, like, one of the issues that I have is like the whole body positivity movement, which is excellent, has been co-opted by the fat acceptance movement. And I don't think they're the same thing, right? So like body positivity to me is that you go onto a website, like I said, and like you have a whole range of like body shapes and types to a point. And like, disabilities and all that kind of stuff, right?
100.
And like, and even just the thing of like, I'm not as hench now as I used to be, sadly. COVID won't do that. But like, even like now or whatever, like some people aren't going to like dig, girls with muscles basically or whatever, or they'll say, oh, it's too much. Yeah. Fuck off, right? Or like, even just someone who's like naturally really skinny. Like I've got friends like that, and they run marathons and they eat loads, but that is their body type. That is that. Like if you want to be super hench or whatever, like how you used to be, cool. Do you know what I mean?
I'm off on the bus. I was including my glasses. Wow. Whoa! See, I was super hench. I weren't fat.
No, you weren't fat at all, but you were fucking hench, man. Yeah. Like, but there are people who will be like judgy about that shit, right? Like judgy about that shit and like, oh, it's too much. It's this, that, or the other. Like to me, that's like, where's your body positivity at, man? Like, fuck off, 100. Right? All that shit. However, I feel like that is not the same thing as being like, the fat acceptance things. Again, like I think if you want to be like a bit chubs or whatever, that's cool, right? Because sometimes that is you like food, genetics and that stuff. My issue is when you're like super morbidly obese and like are then claiming that you're like super healthy and like this, that and the other. And like, you're just like, oh, but what is, like the thing of like, basically, why should I have to make it, you know, for me, one of my issues with it is it's like, if you are so big that I have to then put myself out to deal with you, like if I'm like next to you on a
The
fucking
towel
plane.
situation.
Yeah, like, you know, if I'm sitting next to you onto a plane and you're like, you know, spilling over on me, like, that's not okay to me, right? Like, fuck, like, that isn't just your choice now. You're affecting me. And again, yeah, like, my taxes are going to pay for your fucking health shit down the line. That's not okay to me, right? So, like, for me, it's sort of to a point, but fat acceptance when it is, yeah, like, that article I told you about where it's like, buy bigger towels for your fat friends so when they stay, like, you don't feel bad, you know. To me,
that's long still.
That's like long. Going, your alcoholic friend, make sure you've got a bottle of vodka in every room. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing, right? And like, unless, you know, it's more seen as like being that fat, like, is an addiction to food, like, unless that gets more like acknowledged and like addressed, then this problem is never going to go away.
I want to come back to like two things you both said. I've been trying to memorize what I was going to say as well. So kind of in kind of response to what I was saying about like Tess Halliday being a model, etc. Like I just genuinely believe that if you are overweight and you're happy with it, whatever, like live your life in it. But at the same breath, I can't say, yeah, live your life, but then don't promote that you're happy with how your body looks. Because essentially, that's what she's doing. Does she have an eating disorder or any demons? I don't know. She might do. But from what I see, she's a woman that's happy in herself. And how can we censor that in a way, if that makes sense? When I think probably the John Goodman example was a bad one. But how many other people do things, for example, sell their music, their art, whatever, and they have madness in their personal life, madness, whether it's other addictions that they have, for example, drugs, etc. But people don't say, yo, you're putting too much drug talk in this music, you know, like we might have to pause on that one. They just lap it up because they know it's going to sell. Has anyone like a producer or anything been like, yo, Kanye, are you all right? we just revel in his pain. But why is it okay like for that? But if a fat person wants to be a model, we're saying, nah, that's not what we want to be seeing. But we're happy to take people that are drug addicts, for example, or people that, for example, like there's one documentary that I want to watch that I've been seeing adverts about. It's talking about like the rock and roll era, and how, for example, they were treating women, groupies, etc. Like even that there's many question marks on that, but like they're the gravy train, so the train has to keep going. But we allow like those things, but then just someone that's just fat, we're saying, nah, get out of here, man. To me, for me, let them do what they're doing, man. And like you were saying, in terms of, yeah, I see John Goodman, but I ain't trying to be like, man. Like, it should be the same way for people. If, for example, I see Tess Halliday, I'm happy that you're happy, but that's not what my happy looks like. Like, why can't we have people get into that stage? And for me, it just all loops back to just educate people and allow people to make the choices that they want to make. Same way I bun. You bun. Like, that's the choice that we decided to make. Of course, we're not in denial about it or anything, but that's because I like to think I have a understanding and like an education of different drugs. So I know I wouldn't try anything else because I've just been taught that it's a slippery road, for example. And it comes to the education piece.
I think like
legalize drugs, people.
I mean, yeah, I second that, and I don't take them, but I still think they should be legal anyway. But like, I think with some of that shit is different because, like, it is, you know, things like social media, which is a whole fuckery in itself, and like, I think just as damaging as
We've done
smoking.
an episode on that as well.
Like, I genuinely feel like
that out.
Social media is as damaging to your mental health as smoking is to your physical health, right? And like, I think that with that side of things, like you said, like some of the, like, you know, artists or whatever who've got addictions and stuff, it's not as blatant when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, it might be in the music, but like a lot of people don't even listen to half the words in music anyway. And it's not as like pervasive as, you know, kids like scrolling through Instagram and like TikTok and all that shit. Like, even when you know, like, you know, I stopped reading women's magazines a long time ago because even though I knew these bitches are airbrushed, they're this, they're that, the other, just seeing it like that constantly, like, makes you, like, not feel as good about yourself, right? And, like, so the same thing with, like, if you consider constantly seeing, like, people who are, like, a certain type, like, because it's not okay to be like obese like that, I don't think, because you are doing yourself a disservice. Like, if you are that big, like super, super fat, you are abusing yourself. You're abusing your body, and like you will categorically feel better if you lose a lot of weight. Every single fat person I've ever like talked to, know, whatever, says they feel better when they lose weight, you know, and even if you're fat and healthy, like you're say a size 16, you still probably will feel better. Like if you so I was like my biggest, I was like 95 maybe kilo, right? And I initially lost about 20. I went down to about 75, but I was like looked a bit like I'd lost more because I got quite hench, right? But so I had like something like 28% body fat at that point. And I then lost like another 10 kilo, went down to like 20%, like 19-20% body fat. And I felt a fucking million times better, like than I did even when I was just like, you know, like still complete normal healthy weight, because I was leaner and I was fitter and like, you know, obviously my cardio was better. That's what, you know, I changed the kind of way I was training. And so like, that is always going to be the case. Like if you are better and like, even if it's like, you know, again, like you were 100 kilo and like you're saying maybe you should have been maybe 80 ideally, the closer you get to that, the better you're going to feel. And things like for me, like, you know, when I was really big, like I had an old injury for my knee that happened when I was a kid. And it just got worse and worse and worse. At the point, like I could barely, like going upstairs, I took them one at a time, right? I went to pain clinic, all this shit. Damn. Not a single fucking doctor told me I needed to lose weight and that would help, right?
That's a problem for me, yeah.
Yeah, and like same with my back pain. I was in chronic pain and like they were just like, well, this is it, right? Since losing all that weight, like I haven't had knee problems. I can run upstairs. Like, you know, my back again, like other than like slipped disc, different issue, has been I haven't had pain. Like one of the reasons that like, you know, when I first started losing weight, right? Like I only wanted to get back to like a size 14 again because I was happy being a bit chubs, right? Yeah. But then I basically like got really into it. I found like bits of exercise that I really enjoyed doing. And the more I did, the more weight I lost, the fitter I got, the stronger I got, the less pain I had, the better my like type 1 like diabetes was controlled. And that kept me going. Like you'll have this with people. Like you start and it's difficult, but then it sort of gets easier when you feel better about stuff. And so like no matter what your starting point is, if you get leaner, healthier, fitter, stronger, particularly, you will feel better, right? But one of the problems is, especially if you've been big for a long time, is that is your baseline. Like that is your normal. And so that's all you really know. And you will have days where you feel better or worse, but it's like everything is relative. So you don't even remember what it's like to not be that big, like or to how you feel. Shit. Yeah. You just don't know. And so that makes it much harder as like an incentive because it's not a tangible thing. Like, and when you start, like it can get, you know, it gets more evident, but like, it's not, you can't even comprehend how much better you're going to feel. And also just like how much easier things are like for that on that level. Like it is easier to live when you're like not obese. Yeah, and I don't think that's to do with like, you know, fat phobia or any bullshit like that. It is literally the basic fact that we are meant to not be fat. Like it is just that. It's got nothing to do with society. Yeah, it's like physiology. Like you're not meant to be. Like, so obviously your life will be easier if you're, you know, we're fucking designed, you know, not design, but, you know, like we've evolved to be like in this particular way and like as efficient as possible. The reason that we are the dominant species is we are like the most efficient at things like, you know, like sweating and shit means that we can run further than other animals often. You know, it's things like that. Like we are really attuned to be a certain way. And so the closer to that, the better you will feel. Like it's that simple. And so it's the denial of that shit that is the thing that makes me the most frustrated with like the way this is dealt with in society.
No, hundreds here.
And then another thing as well, quickly, is like how the public perception has changed for me is like, I think there's a lot of pandering now, like to people's emotions, like, and a lot of mother cuddling, like, trying to cater for people that are not just accepting of the fact. And what I mean is how it's shifted over the times. For example, I think we spoke about it when we was chopping it up before. Baywatch, prime example, where the vision of or a sex symbol back in the day was Pamela Anderson running down that beach in that red leotard
in
or whatever, slow-mo. And you could not tell me that in them eras there, women did not want to be like her. She made a name of being this icon that women wanted to be like. And let's be real, if she was fat back then, no one would have wanted to be like Pamela Anderson. So how the perception now has changed from, okay, that body type that she was running down the beach with was seen as publicly acceptable as a normal, good-looking body. That's what the public saw it as. So now it's like that we were talking about the advert before about Beach Body Ready. It's pretty much the same body that we're talking about, but now it's a problem. Do you understand? So you can see even just then from Baywatch to now how the same pretty much body type has become a problem. And I feel that's because we're pandering now to people's emotions. Like, oh no, yeah, you're fat and that, and it's okay. Like, yeah, it's cool as long as you own that, but don't try and switch it round and make healthy people feel bad about themselves because you're not accepting the fact that you're not a normal or healthy bodied person. And yeah, that's what I'll say on that one.
Because I think also with that to that point as well of like, is again, it's the whole thing of like body positivity versus like fat acceptance. Because I think like it's, she was a certain way, like she was quite, I don't think she quite had the same physique as the chick in that advert who's a bit more like kind of muscly, a bit more fit now. Because there's definitely been a trend for women in women's magazines towards from skinny with no muscle to more athletic, which I think is really good because it's just hotter in my opinion. You know what I mean? And like, there's definitely a move towards that stuff, but like, there's a difference again. Like, it's like to a point, like, and I think like, yeah, like to being like chubby is fine, cool, man. But when you get really big and you get really like a way about it, if people want to say something about it, when it's just like, because again, when I was fat, I was like, I would say that I was fat and people would be like, no, you're not. And I'm like, no, I am, and like, and that kind of stuff. Like, I know I'm fat. Like, I'm not going to say that. I'm in the same way as like, if you describe someone as like, who's 7 foot tall and you don't say that they're tall, then what the fuck are you doing kind of thing? Like, so there's all that like weird sensitivity around that shit. But like, also that thing of like, compared to like Pammy when she was really thin and stuff, like all of the chicks on Baywatch were like that, right? And I feel like that's not great either. Like, you should have a wide like range of things because some shit is to do with genetics and that kind of stuff.
And that's the time shift that I was
so
talking
that's
about.
Like, that's good.
That was acceptable then to have a cast of
they all look the same,
ladies,
basically.
I see it differently to the advert though. So I think when I look at Baywatch back now and that lineup, what I see is like people like telling people what they should be looking like, if that makes sense. Because there's not that range. There's just a load of
skinny white girls
with their boobs.
Well, maybe Baywatch is a bad example because let's be real, no fat obese lifeguard is going to be running down the beach and diving into the sea and saving your life. Let's be.
I know fat is very buoyant,
That's true.
It is, but them girls
if you're out far,
were streamlined. They were streamlined things. They're getting through the water quick. Let's be real, like. And where on any beach or anywhere do you go in life, take away the film set, do you see an obese or fat lifeguard or someone sitting at the side of the pool?
I've seen it still. Anyone can get a lifeguard position, man.
All right, lifeguard, because that's just the pool right there. It's sitting there. But like, in the sea, I ain't seen it. I've been bare places and never seen it. But that's the thing,
is like, for me, again, it's that thing of like having a range of people, like modeling, acting, whatever. So again, like, I mean, it used to just basically be like slim white people in everything constantly, right? And now it's like there is more, diversity. Like, and whether that's like ages, sizes, like all that kind of shit, genders, fucking all that shit, like that is good. But it's the thing of like when you get to a certain point of being obese and like it's not just because you like food and that not being talked about. And I think that's also why people who are that big, who get angry about shit, like, and about it being pointed out, because it isn't just that they like food, you know, like, then there's a lot of stuff that is linked towards, especially like childhood, like sexual abuse often means that people like turn to food because it's the one thing, I mean, that was my story. Like, it's the one thing that like you can control when you're like a little kid. I was, you know, abused when I was a kid, and like I was bulimic, and it happened at the same time because that was my way of controlling stuff, right? And like one of the reasons I feel like I managed to lose weight and keep it off is because I've done a lot of therapy, and like I have dealt with like sexual abuse that I had as a kid, right? And like I dealt with this shit underneath my addictions, right? Which meant I could like stop doing it, you know?
Understood the why.
Yeah, like I understood the why, and I worked through it, so I didn't have that fucking pain that I was trying to like manage, those feelings that I didn't understand, especially when they come from childhood where you don't know what's going on. And that shit really carries on into adulthood. And that's your coping mechanism, and that's what you do. And like the other thing is, like, especially if you've been overweight for a long time, one of the issues where people talk about like diet culture, it doesn't work because it doesn't. You like, you know, there's loads of studies like you have to if you've been really fat, to keep the weight off like for a sustained amount of time, you have to lose it relatively slowly, and you have to properly like do a significant amount of exercise for the rest of your life. Right. And so like
put up some helplines.
Yeah. So like that's something to do as well, that you have to like completely like change like your lifestyle as well as just your diet, because that's a whole other fuckery, like the diet culture thing.
It's a relationship with everything as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
100. Wait. Anything else you wanted to touch on?
Well, now I think
I feel like there's so much more, but we haven't got time.
I mean, there is
the bit still. We could go on forever. Still,
we could go on forever, but yeah, we need to obviously keep everyone engaged in this particular episode because it is actually important and something that doesn't get widely discussed. So yeah, first of all, Tat, thank you very much for your words and expertise today. It's been a techie one, man.
Yeah.
It's been a techie one.
But you know what, as well, it'd be good to hear like from in the comment section, like what some of the listeners think as well on everything that we've spoken about. Because as I was saying at the beginning, like a lot of what we're talking about is subjective. Like I feel as though we almost agree with each other, but then there's little bits that we see a little bit differently. So like, yeah, would love to hear what some of the listeners think as well.
One final thing, like to do with that actually is like, again, it's the relativity thing. Because I've also had the thing where I've said to people, oh yeah, I used to be fat. And they're like, oh, me too. And they meant that they were like a teeny bit fat than they are now. And then I will whip out a picture being like, no fam, like I weighed 50% more than I do now.
And they're like, whoa.
And they're like, whoa, fuck, okay. Because it is that thing where, especially to look at me now, if you met me now, it's a complete head fuck. Like it fucks your head when you look at pictures of me and stuff like that.
Head spun.
Right?
Literally spun.
And so that is one thing. Like if you are watching this and you are fat and you don't think you can lose weight, you absolutely can.
Of course you can. And if you definitely don't think you can, follow at me, because it's what I do.
I was going to say, it was like,
I've changed many lives. Anyway, Buff and Blau, that is us, man.